got kind of a nice day today, so thought we'd try something different. Go out for a drive. It's election day. It's Tuesday. And right now it's 70 degrees here in central Wisconsin. So yeah, take advantage of a November day that's not covered in snow and go for a little ride about town here with the car. Usually this thing is put away by this point, and this year things have transpired as such that we don't have to put it away just yet. Alright, okay. Let's see if we can keep you from falling off the roof again. Come springtime, I'm going to probably have to put brakes in this thing. I thought I was going to get it done this year, but you know, like everything else, things don't always go to plan. Kind of the theme of this year, right? Because the rotor up on that front passenger corner there has got a little bit of a warp to it, and it doesn't show up all the time. And when I pulled the wheel off, I think what it is more than anything is it's called hot spotting, where the rotor got warm at some point, and the metal actually changes composition a little bit. You can see kind of shiny spots all the way around the rotor, and it gives the same effect as a warped rotor because the pad grips that differently, so you get that pulse. The trick with a car like this is, you know, you gotta put good brakes in anything, but a car built to run a little quicker, it's got bigger brakes in it. But at the same time, you don't have to go totally bonkers. Put in drilled and slotted rotors and all this sort of thing if you're not going to be running it hard at a track day. You know, drilled rotors are really only for weight reduction. Slotted rotors, that's not a horrible upgrade. Those slots, they kind of work. I don't know if you can see the wheel, that little bit of a shimmy, that's that rotor. But yeah, those slots kind of continuously clean the brake pads off, and I don't think you get quite the same mileage out of them as you do out of those flat mill rotors. But yeah, we'll see. I also don't want to put really hard pads in this thing either that are going to make a bunch of noise. I'm not racing it. A car that's 21 years old. Don't need to do track days, but we'll see. 6-speed gearbox in it. And in 99, I know a little bit before and a little ways after, Chevy did a thing with the manual gearbox to get it under fuel rules and a couple other things, because this and the Corvette have the same gearbox, 6-speed. Was it a T56, I think? But they put in a speed sensor, and it's called skip shift. And when you're driving under what they consider to be average town conditions, the transmission electronically locks out second and third gear. A little light goes on the dashboard, and yeah, it forces you to go from first, and then you drop down into fourth. Now, when that little light comes on, if you give her a little more, the light goes off and you can shift into second. Or if you're like here, if I pull away slow, yeah, see, it didn't come on that time. It only usually comes on when you don't want it to. It's not a big deal. You can buy a little dummy plug that goes in the transmission where the light still goes on, but it doesn't lock out the transmission, but I never thought it was that big a deal. It's fifth. Really not tearing into it here. And if we're going 65, 70 miles an hour here and we drop into sixth gear, it's really an overdrive. So now the revs drop way down, about 1,400. And it'll just sit there. You actually get really good mileage. You're not driving foolishly. Thing that these cars did really good right out of the gate and send them off to SLP for the SS upgrade is go around corners. They're really well planted, huge anti-roll bars front and back. Everything's upgraded to keep the thing real flat. And pull your lips off going around a corner. Tires are nice and wide, so it stays planted. It's been a pretty good car. You know, some of the maintenance stuff can get expensive, but that's with just about anything, I guess. But something that's always a good idea to do, especially now when you can get parts and you've got a lot of tools for cross-checking parts online. A good example with this vehicle is the window motors. Now the windows in this car are pretty big. They're the side windows, and they're heavy. So it's kind of a known issue with these things that the window motors go out, and it's a real hassle to swap those out. I've done them a couple times now. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, looking for those window motors. If you call the dealership, you're going to take it in the shorts, and especially when you tell them what the car is, and they say, "Well, we got to go to the rare parts catalog." Well, might as well hang up the phone. But I did some checking, and I couldn't believe that Chevrolet would make a door motor for this car and only this car. It's just not really how they do things. And it shares a lot of parts with the Corvette. But the Corvettes took a lot of parts off the shelf too. So you do a little bit of checking around, and they wanted an arm and a leg for the Camaro/Corvette door motor. A couple $100 a piece. And you do a little more hunting, and you find out that they use that exact same motor, in the Blazers and the S10s and a couple of the coupes. And I think I ended up buying the Blazer part for the car, even though it's the same motor, because it was a Blazer. They had to cross-reference the part number. I think I paid about $23 a motor. Same exact part, same exact motor. But if you tell them it's for a Blazer, they just about knock a zero off the price. You got to do that kind of checking around. Sometimes you're not going to get away from it. If you've got any of the performance-oriented parts, any of the things that are specific to this vehicle, yeah, they're going to be expensive. Looking at something like this, late 90s GM, whether it's this or like the GTOs, you can still come across those, or Firebirds, or if you find one that hasn't been pounded in the crap. One thing that I like to do with the cars is update the radios, if only, especially now, because I like to be able to add like Bluetooth, hands-free calling, and that sort of thing. And you can't do that in this car real easy. If you come across a GM car and it's got a monsoon stereo system in it, it's their premium stereo, just know that you're not going to be able to replace the head unit without replacing all the speakers and pulling new wire. They used separate power amplifier, and they drove everything at 2 ohm. Real low resistance speakers. Usually car audio, you're running either 4 ohm or 8, but 2 is really unusual. And the way that this car works is there's the head unit in the dash, and then buried back in the rear fender well, there's a power amplifier that then drives all the speakers in this thing. And yeah, so basically if you want to replace the head unit in one of these cars, you can do that, but just know that you're going to be replacing all the speakers. You can't run 4 or an 8 ohm head unit on 2 ohm speakers. You'll nuke your head. And yeah, so I've never done that. I've had to replace a couple speakers, and that's expensive. It's hard to find 2 ohm speakers. The best ones that I've found have been from Infinity. But yeah, those don't come cheap. And honestly, it's a lackluster sound system, for being premium sound. I've never been super excited about it. My dad's got a Z28, same year, and that's got the same monsoon system, and it sounds completely different. His sounds fantastic, and I've checked and replaced everything in this thing, and it's just it doesn't compare. Right? I think that's probably more a quality control issue at GM than anything. Where it's one of those that you don't really find out about until you start digging into it. If you do ever need to check on any sort of car audio stuff, especially, the best place that I've dealt with is Crutchfield. It is absolutely phenomenal, and they're not a sponsor or anything, but they're one of those companies where you can pick up the phone and you can talk to them and they'll take care of you. For everything except this stupid thing with that monsoon, every other vehicle that I've wanted to replace a head unit, you go and you pick out what you want. There's the skip shift, first to fourth. But yeah, you go and you tell them what head unit you want, you tell them what vehicle you got, and they provide you with all the accessories, the wiring, the trim rings, the install instructions, everything you could possibly want. And for all the stuff that I've done with them, I've never once had something show up and it's not the right thing. Everything fits first time, snaps in clean, all the trim rings and everything. They're just excellent to deal with. There's shops that'll do install and that. For God's sakes, don't take anything to the butchers over at Best Buy. Years ago, they did some work in my wife's car, and they're not interested in doing a clean install. They don't care about any of that. They're really into volume. It's not the fault of the guys in the shop. They're just doing what they're told. It's just how that company handles it. They installed a head unit and some speakers in a Buick, and God, was that a hack job. It's not that hard to tap into a factory wiring harness if you've got a little bit of patience. But yeah, they just butchered that car. Cut holes up under the dashboard. Instead of finding stuff that fits proper, if it doesn't fit, they just cut it until it does. And most people would never know. Because, you know, who's going to go back and take that stuff apart? I only found out when we sold the car and I wanted to pull the speakers out of it. Found the hack job they had done with that thing. This is always an interesting spot right here. Right in the middle of town, and you get deer that run out of the woods here all the time. Going on about 4 o'clock. Sun's going down. The other thing I wanted to do here was I wanted to get this out, run it a bit, because I put a full tank of gas in it before it goes into storage. You never want to store anything with a half-empty tank. Anything that's exposed is going to rust, and that's going to cause you every kind of hurt. You start sucking rust into your fuel system. Always store your cars with full tanks of gas in them. And I toss a little preservative in there, some sea breeze. This one I don't worry too much about because I always run premium in it. It doesn't have any ethanol in it. But I guess that would be even on an average car. If you've got to store it for any amount of time, don't store it with that ethanol gas in it. Spend the money, it's dirt cheap these days anyway. The cars don't always run as well. It's not premium if they don't need it, but if it keeps it from gelling up, if it's going to be sitting for a few months. Bad drive with the exception of knocking you off the roof there the first 500 feet. Pretty busy around the house today. Polling site. Neighbor's car had a bad day. We had haven't talked to him to find out what happened there, but took the whole nose off of that little Nissan. Bent the frame, the whole thing. So, there we go. So, yeah, I'll probably take her out another couple times here before the snow flies and enjoy some driving. But in the meantime, be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. All right. Peace.